Last time on World of Warcraft. That's not subtle whatsoever! The actual worst race they've ever added to the game. So they turned the interesting dude into a villain, and the fun uncle that I really liked, they also killed. Like I said, I had hope for 2 seconds there, and it was ripped away from me. Wait for a lead on Zul'jan's whereabouts. Wait for patch 12.1. I feel like the snakes are way too cutesy. Like, they look like they're gonna have a line of plushies made about them, you know what I mean? I like how the mohawk takes up half the screen. It's like I'm squirting out ketchup.
Tragic. How weak have the Amani become? That they beg
I look like I'm trying to scratch an
fight
itch in
their
my shoulder with my axe.
No wonder Zul'jan sought my guidance.
Malakras, you vile traitor! What have you done with my brother?
Don't fool yourself. You know he was the one who set this all in motion.
Da da da.
No! You've twisted him, just as you twisted our grandfather.
I've put him on the path to true
God, this animation
power.
style is so awkward.
Something your lore could never provide. Now, sacrifices must be made to restore the might of the great Amani Empire.
Let them go!
Yeah, the lip sync in these cutscenes are always very awkward.
Take them to the island, children of Ula'tek.
Zul'jan, what have you done?
They look so low effort. Like, the content of that cutscene's fine, just the way it looks, man. They really need to stop doing those kind of cutscenes, in my opinion. There's been a decent amount of cutscenes here. Oh my god, it's a good kind as well. Row, row, row your dinghy gently down the stream. Yummy, yummy poison. Yum, yum, yum. I must become a villain. I can't become an interesting long-term character. I must become a villain because, naturally. You totally can't predict my story from that one image they showed off in the reveal of Midnight. He's a P5 fan, that's his persona. Why did they change Malakras' model to a Zendalari?
Deep inside this temple,
His model back in Kata's way cooler.
power our ancestors ever wielded.
A 5090.
Light of Ula'tek.
No, it's called Frostmourne.
Now, break the seal.
Kiss from a Rose. You see, when they actually put effort into the cutscenes, they look really nice.
I know it hurt, Zul'jan.
But get over it.
Your sister was chosen to lead. But you don't have to stay in her shadow. And watch the Lord
They are doing this, Ark.
This is your chance to command a power so terrifying that the lower, the elves, the world itself will tremble before the Amani Empire.
Oh my god, they are so predictable.
For the glory of Zul'jan.
He touched the tip. Oh, it's leaking after he touched it. Oh, it's sizzling. Nickelodeon back in the 2000s be like, slime time! Oh my god, now I can't unsee it as Nickelodeon slime. Why did I say that? Oh no. They're so cuddly, I want to die. I'm glad no one saw him, by the way.
You said we would command this power, not unleash it upon our people.
We have just begun. Your grandfather understood the cost of this victory. Do you? Because you see,
We have to screech on
upon the
command.
walls of each Amani's sacrifice, our empire shall rise.
Let's go, Snake Empire. Bro, I can't believe we actually called the fact he would have sister issues from like one image. God, this story writing, character writing is so predictable.
Do not interfere, sister.
Why are you doing
Oh god, he's opening a jailer
what
portal.
has Malakras promised you?
Stray
I like myself in the
to
background.
build the
I look like
Amani
I'm from a
Empire that
completely different
grandfather
franchise.
envisioned. One that terrifies our enemies, not one that grovels to trickster spirits.
The Loa look after us.
The Loa failed us. They failed our grandfather, our uncle, and they will fail you too. I won't let that happen.
Be careful, Zul'jan. He has a
Come
weapon enchant.
home, little brother.
We are not children anymore, Zul'jan. Stay out of my way.
Zul'jan, stop!
Let's go!
Ooh. Why did I move like that, dude? Why was my orc like, oh no, he slashed her? Why did we move like that? Gun Alta
A
investigator.
power older and greater than the Loa. With it, the Amani will prevail. Her again. Nexali. We must witness the rest of this vision together.
Witness the World Soul Terror. Ula'tek, Ula'tek. Oh, that one vision. Cutscene time! Oh, this trash cutscene style, man.
Light of our salvation. Ula'tek!
Bring in the snake! I summon in five-headed dragon. Did the cutscene lag there?
What is that thing? Sister, make it stop! It's too dangerous!
This is the price of victory. Upon the bones of each Amani sacrifice,
Now all shall see.
fire will rise.
This is the power of the Forsaken. It's almost like the Wrathgate in a way. But why wouldn't you animate a fight between, like, Ula'tek and Kithix? The weapon that saved the Amani was a monster created by another monster to kill a monster. That's what our ancestors built the empire on. Why wouldn't you animate the fight between Ula'tek and Kithix? That would have been an awesome cutscene. It would have kind of reminded me of, like, Omega versus Shinryu in Final Fantasy XIV. Why cut it off right before it gets really good?
Ula'tek's fang. It is the key to our don't understand. Ula'tek's power, it'll save the Amani.
Yeah, sure it will,
Save
bro.
us all. You will not stop me, elf.
Quickly, everyone, run to the knife.
Ula'tek's power will be mine.
I'm assuming he was channeling a spell, and that's why he wasn't, like, holding it in the fight.
Then your sister will die.
Oh!
And that blade is the only chance of saving her.
Yeah, poison her again, that'll work.
No, Zul'jan. Lady Liadrin speaks the truth. I put you on this path, not for power, but for answers. And
Oh, 'cause
after
I thought-
everything you've seen, what truly matters to you? Your hatred? Your power? Or your sister's life?
That one choice in an RPG that determines the route.
Save her,
Alright, good guy Zul'jan.
please.
Oh yeah, fucking choke me, Dad.
If this was the price of victory, your grandfather would have let her die.
Damn.
But I'm sure I can twist you into something useful.
Okay, well, good news. We got new loot. Legendary acquired. So I guess what they're going for is that at the last second, Zul'jan decides, no, I'm going to save my sister instead of the power and the glory of the Amani. But Malakras is still going to, like, corrupt him or, like, use him somehow.
Place the dagger so we can begin our own ritual.
Meanwhile, Captain Talker's just like, bro, I know she's, like, poison and all that, but, like, I got a quest for you, right? All right, place it way over here.
Zul'jan! No! This is not working. The dagger's magic is too strong.
Then our only choice is to destroy
You're gonna watch
it.
the raid cinematic after this? Yeah, we'll watch it. Smash!
Thank the goddess. The curse is broken.
Zul'jara, are you all right?
My left arm hurts.
I'll be fine. But Zul'jan needs help.
Cosmos, thank you. I saw so much. Gets a far-off look and growls. It's too late. No. Shudders violently and scowls, shaking off the visual. We must find my brother, but first, go do some world quests. Now, because Blizzard wants to delay story mode for a week for whatever reason that's stupid and wrong, we're gonna react to the ending cinematic for the Venomous Abyss raid, the Curse of Ula'tek, from Wowhead. So, let's rip it. God, imagine if Ula'tek did anything remotely interesting on screen. Besides, like, shoot out, like, 3 piles of venom.
I'm so sorry.
Bro hit up the barber shop.
Do you remember our childhood home? The towering trees. The scent of the moss. Our laughter as we chase the summer winds.
Through the valley, to the edge of the sea. I remember.
I was always chasing after you. I wanted to stand beside you.
I know I sacrificed a lot of people to a snake thing. But remember when we were kids in the summer wind?
I saw then, just as I see now, that you are the true strength of the Amani. Zul'jara. You, my sister.
Throat died from cringe.
Go with the wind, little brother.
Bro, can we please get this cinematic team like an actual good story, please? Like, this cinematic team is actually pretty good when it comes to, like, these high-effort cutscenes. Can we give them a story worth the damn? It's like you're going to a Michelin star restaurant and you're ordering, like, what McDonald's throws away at the end of each week. how do I say what I want to say? They save cutscenes to try to have characters aura farm or show off some kind of action sequence. They need to dedicate more cutscenes and more time for these characters to actually feel like characters on screen and to express emotion in meaningful ways. A lot of the times when it comes to Zul'jan's character, they relegated her emotional expressions to just quest text, like I'm reading a novel. I can get that. However, I think this cutscene also kind of like showcases it. I know what they're trying to do, where she's like kind of conflicted because this dude made a bunch of like bad decisions, right? But in this moment, I don't feel a lot of emotion coming from Zul'jan as a character herself, outside of like this like final hug. Like this is pretty fine. But when you relegate all the emotional bits to the quest text, it creates this like juxtaposition to where it almost feels like two characters. The one that you tell me about and the one that you show me. When it comes to Zul'jan as a character, there's a reason people didn't want this to be the ending, because we could have kind of predicted it, and a lot of people did predict it from the initial image they showed off when they announced Midnight, because of basic pattern recognition. Whenever World of Warcraft and Blizzard wants to build up a female character, most of the time, their default, their go-to, is to do so by taking down a male character. I am of the opinion that does a disservice not only to the male character, but also the female character. It's like they had this moment where Zul'jan just says this crap right here, where he has to essentially look at her, and we also essentially look at the camera saying, I was wrong, you were right the entire time, you're the true strength of the Amani. What that does is position his story to be a sacrificial one to bolster the character of Zul'jan. I feel there are far more interesting ways to develop, flesh out, and continue the character of Zul'jan without continually relying upon this idea and this what has become a trope. There are some sweet elements to this. I feel like whoever wrote the dialogue in this cutscene in a vacuum did a pretty good job painting the scene and making it try to feel emotional. Like this story of them being kids. However, what takes the wind out from under it is the entire story up to this point, where this dude is an idiot and he slashed his sister with a poison dagger and apparently didn't realize that might poison her. They tried to write it away, but they don't write it in a believable way. And on top of that, this dude was willingly, or at least was going to, just sacrifice swaths of Amani for Ula'tek and all that. Maybe he did in the raid, but even if he didn't, the dude had an entire villain arc, and now we're trying to act as if he's this like tragic character. It feels like the story of two characters. Again, I don't mind a villain whose reasoning is kind of superficial and he's acting in a way that's just an emotional response to the situation. Lau from Xenoblade X, in my opinion, does a really good job of demonstrating what I'm talking about there. But this dude had deep-seated beliefs and all that, and I get what they were trying to do. They weren't as important to him as his sister in the end. There are ways to make that work, but I feel we go back to the issues I've always been hopping in on, and mainly been hopping in on since Midnight's main story. Their issue is pacing and selection and priority. Because of the pacing of the story, because of what they choose to focus in on, because of their over-reliance on the idea of trying to develop a female character by bringing down a male character, we could smell this kind of coming a mile away. It was just a matter of what form was it going to take. Was he going to go turbo villain or tragic villain? They went tragic villain. And I think the other sin that this cutscene and just this overall story they have done with the Amani really brings to the table is that by trying to elevate the character of Zul'jan by bringing down Zul'jan, I now no longer care about this character because Zul'jan is no longer a part of the story. And you took a character that had so much potential with Zul'jan and you used him as just XP fodder for Zul'jan. So it takes the wind out of the sail that they were trying to go for with Zul'jan and for the Amani. It makes me less interested in that entire quadrant of the world. I think they did this because they wanted a emotional point in the story where they're able to say, see, we are willing to kill off established main characters in this narrative. Okay, sure, there is a virtue in being able to do that. More often than not, when it comes to World of Warcraft, when they choose to kill off a main character, by having that character die off, it makes the story and the overall cast of characters less interesting moving forward. The other big sin is that this entire story was so predictable. I don't think predictability is necessarily an indicator of how good a story is. However, sometimes a story is predictable because it should go a certain way, and other times it is predictable because of how little faith we have in the writing team. I feel this is a case of the latter. From this image alone, and when we were told Zul'jan is the leader of the Amani and Zul'jan is her younger brother, we knew this entire story. He'd be the aggressive one, she'd be the one in the right, he would go villain, and we would have to deal with that. We knew that entire story. They just throw in a new snake dude into the mix. When your story is that predictable, where people can get 85-90% of the way there for the entire story of the zone, and for these two characters off of this one image, your writing has become stale. It has become overly predictable and not in a good way. And I think change is needed, a change in direction. But the other problem this brings to the table is that it makes the entire Amani part of the story just feel like a glorified filler arc, because it kind of was. There are some elements that loop back into the A-plot, like those visions of Azeroth that Orwena had. That was kind of cool. However, when you're trying to have this overarching narrative with the World Soul Saga, and you're trying to tell this really interesting and compelling story, and you're proud of it, and you say, this is us bringing our balls and putting them onto the table, we have a story we want to tell, this is a big one, it's a whole trilogy, we want you to come along for the ride, we are really proud of what we're bringing here. This pacing can't be it. This choice to dedicate an entire patch to what is largely a filler arc instead of fleshing out and telling the main plot in an interesting way with way better pacing does a disservice to the story you are trying to tell. I feel things would be way better paced if instead of focusing on trying to hit plot beat, you focus far more on character moments and the emotional side of the story. Because it feels like they are content with telling plot points instead of trying to tell a story. Because while yes, there are things that like weave themselves back into the A-plot. There are things that have been foreshadowed. They're not done so in a compelling manner. They're not done so in a way that makes me excited for what is coming next and excited for future stories that will be told in this world. Because of the pacing and the way they handle these characters, it makes me more apathetic to everything going on. I think there's a reason a lot of people are looking forward to Classic Plus, and it's not necessarily the nature of Classic Plus itself or the quality of Classic Plus. They want a World of Warcraft experience that is fresh and new, that doesn't feel like this. Whether it's either the gameplay, because the quest design, in my opinion, is very, very repetitive as well. And in some places that are supposed to be really cool, like that flashback scene we had where we like summoned Ula'tek and all that, the quest design there is hyper repetitive and takes a little bit too long for comfort. It looks really cool. They want it to be really cool, but mechanically that doesn't come across. There are some interesting smaller elements, but they mess up the larger ones. Midnight had so much potential, building off a story that has just been kind of simmering away since the Burning Crusade. When it comes to all these disparate elven factions, when it comes to the Amani, when it comes to the Sunwell, but because of what they choose to focus on, their giant issue when it comes to pacing and selection of what to prioritize in the story, it does a disservice to all of this. And it makes this corner of the world far less interesting and way less engrossing. The Elven stuff, particularly the Blood Elven stuff, and like the Amani stuff, has always been one of my favorite like quadrants of World of Warcraft. It's always been some of the stuff I've been the most interested in. However, with the story they have told so far at Midnight, I'm kind of checked out on all of it. It's not interesting, it's not well handled. I'm not a fan of the plot beats they have chosen to pursue with Midnight when it comes to focusing in on having Zul'jan die in order to elevate Zul'jan as a character, and we're going to kind of focus the entire Amani story on that one sibling story. I'm not a fan of just trying to replace all the interesting stuff that made the Blood Elves cool and interesting in the world of Warcraft with this like kind of lame, pedestrian, flavorless Dawnwell that we have now. It feels like they're far too focused on trying to wrap up storylines, wrap up overarching elements of the story that have always existed in World of Warcraft, and they're trying to focus in on a reset. There is nothing confirming that a grand reset of World of Warcraft is coming, but people have theorized it, they have predicted it, and at this point it feels kind of inevitable. But the way that we're getting there is making me far less interested in the world itself because you're not developing it in an interesting way. I was super interested in The Last Titan because I love Northrend so much. I am now more concerned than anything about what they're actually going to do here. Their design is way too soft. I couldn't care about the snake enemies whatsoever. They were just like an insert new enemy faction here. They looked way too soft and cuddly. I couldn't take them seriously whatsoever. I don't like the tone. I don't like the direction. I don't like the way World of Warcraft tells a modern story. And I'm saying World of Warcraft there specifically because I know Diablo is different. I haven't played Diablo 4 that much, but just watching trailers of Diablo 4, you can feel that it's different. It's an active choice on the part of Blizzard to write and develop and flesh out World of Warcraft in this style and tone and way. That is an active choice, and it's an active choice that I personally disagree with. This is a story that will be easily forgotten about in just a couple of weeks' time. They might keep Zul'jan in the story and keep the Amani there, kind of like they did in the Battle for the Sunwell, where she just like strolls up and just like, yeah, we're here now. But this is a story I will forget about largely probably by tomorrow, because tomorrow we have the Trails in the Sky second chapter demo. I don't care about Zul'jan as a character anymore. Daxor is a dude that just kind of showed up that feels like a Zappy Boy replacement. Zul'jara is like a nothing burger to me now. You have wasted the character of Lady Liandrin in this entire storyline by just having her be basically the wingman of Zul'jara here. I get what you're trying to do with like the tensions between the Blood Elves and the Amani trolls. I don't think they did anything remotely interesting with that whatsoever here. Orwena's just kind of here so they can say this relates back to the A plot. I want to personally see large systemic change in direction and tone for World of Warcraft. I don't think it's a matter of old WoW just being nostalgic. I think it's a fundamental problem with the modern experience and direction of the game. Quite frankly, this sucks. Where it's kind of like modern Halo to me, where there are moments where you can see something really cool being there just under the surface, where there are people on this team clearly that have good ideas and are passionate and love what they are doing, and you can feel that, but it's smothered under these numerous decisions that just drag everything down and drag it through the muck and the mud. They want to tell a character-driven emotional story, but it feels like they don't know how to do it, and it's for all the reasons that we've talked about so far. I want WoW to get better. I think it can get better, and I don't think it would take long for them to get better, because a lot of it is a mindset. If you are far more willing to take your time and to let things breathe and not take some storylines into certain directions, you can improve this overall experience rather quickly, in my opinion. It's just a matter of, are they going to pull that trigger at some point? I'll say this right now, I'll play The Last Titan because I want to cover it, but if I wasn't like streaming and doing YouTube and all that, this kind of feels like where I was when it comes to Shadowlands, where I'm just losing faith rapidly. It can still be recouped, don't get me wrong. I want to see this get better. My faith in that happening, though, is dwindling. And it's a shame because I genuinely did love The War Within. I thought The War Within was really cool. It had its issues. I was willing for like this pacing for part one of the story because I'm like, okay, we're putting the pieces of the puzzle on the game board and we're trying to develop these things for down the line, but we're still having that same kind of pacing issue. And we're like over halfway through the World Soul Saga at this point, or at least kind of feels like that. In fact, I think we are like at the halfway point right now. There are ways to salvage it, don't get me wrong. So it's just like what they're doing in WoW just feels like nothing. And that's like the overarching feeling that I'm getting out of the story of Midnight ever since they wrapped up the Dawnwell stuff. I can't really have a strong emotional reaction to what is going on other than laughter, because nothing about this story is strong enough or interesting enough to elicit an emotional response from me, positive or negative. It's very bland and seasonless. How would you correct and improve the current narrative? That is a great question. I would just take things way slower. For me, if I was to do Midnight Over, you can keep mostly the same story, but instead of having this shit be like 12.1, I would have had the War of Light and Shadow retaking the Sunwell. That would have been 0.1, because that story needed way more time to breathe and to feel like a legitimate threat that doesn't just get wrapped up with a time-gated week or something. Let Zul'jan and the Devouring Host feel like a legitimate threat. Let us lose Silvermoon for a bit. Let there be actual stakes. Have there be a moment where like we're down here in like either Tranquillian or like down here with like the High Elves, and it's just like we're continuing to lose ground. The Devouring Host feels far too overwhelming. All of a sudden, you hear the Kodos in the distance, and like an entire army of Horde comes in through the Plaguelands, or something like that. They don't have these moments where the story feels really cool, that feels like a giant turning point in a way that like the Wrathgate felt. They don't have moments like this anymore. They have to be able to write characters and dialogue in a far better way. And I know that's not specific, but just like that is kind of what they have to do. And they have to be willing to allow these plot points and allow these stories to breathe, because they burn through the interesting stuff way too fast to where I can't get invested, because you're not giving me enough time to be invested in what is going on. Like everything we just did in 12.1 just feels like a filler patch. And I can see the Call of the Void. They're probably going to work the A-plot back in that final chapter. But this entire bit with like the Coiled Isle up to this point feels like whatever. Like I'm going to forget about this entire storyline when we get like the Last Titan. Focus on Zul'jan, focus on the Devouring Host, focus on like this battle between light and shadow, and let it breathe. The story needs way more time to actually breathe. It just feels like a WoW patch. Nothing special, nothing interesting or cool. It doesn't feel like we're telling this grandiose trilogy of expansions for a story. It just feels like a regular old WoW patch. And when you try to build up the World Souls saga to not just be that, I think it's a sign that the World Souls saga is failing.